To make you aware, this podcast will contain conversations around mental health and well-being and could include issues of a sensitive nature. This is a podcast from Turbine Talks CIC.
Welcome to the Life Library podcast, the space where we unpack the chapters, stories and experiences that shape our collective well-being, where every guest is a new volume and every life is a story worth sharing. On this episode, we're diving deep into a topic that touches every single one of us at some point, yet remains one of the hardest landscapes to navigate: grief, loss and bereavement. My guest is Jonathan, the founder of Talkabout Solutions. Jonathan's a practitioner who brings a unique and powerful blend to his space. He describes his work as combining deeply compassionate, empathetic guidance with highly practical, structured tools. Whether he's working one-to-one or facilitating group sessions, his focus is on helping people move through emotional pain without feeling entirely unmoored by it. We'll explore more the foundational philosophies that underpin his approach to healing. We'll discuss the unique dynamics of one-to-one versus group therapy, the breakthrough strategies he uses when a client feels completely stuck or resistant, and importantly, how Jonathan protects his own well-being to avoid burnout while holding space for so much heavy emotion. He'll also be sharing some specific practical exercises that you can start trying today, and we'll look at where Talkabout Solutions is heading in the future. So what can you tell me about your personal journey? What led you into grief, bereavement and well-being work, and how Talkabout Solutions came to be?
Thank you, Patrick. Good question to start with. I think for me, I've been a social worker for over 30 years, working in health and social care, 26 as a social worker, but I've been a coach almost as long time as I've been a social worker as well. Had the qualification for quite a while. I've always enjoyed working directly with people. So my social work journey, I started off post qualification, working 9 years in mental health. I worked for a hospice for 15 years, predominantly working with people with life-limited illness or their family members, or bereaved relatives, whether that's children and adults too, one-to-ones and groups, providing support to local schools, etc., and school teachers and things like that if there'd been a death in the school. And I've always enjoyed supporting people to have difficult conversations, I guess, and the kind of conversations that the rest of society don't really like to have or shirk away from.
Shy away, don't
Absolutely.
we, often about that,
Yeah. So the last couple of years, as I left the hospice, I had a training job in a health and care academy for a year. And then last year I hit 55 and I found myself in a job in a post-vention team in a local health board local to myself, just working part-time. And Talkabout Solutions, the name came up because we all need to talk about stuff, irrespective of what that stuff is. And I think there's always the caveat that talk about your stuff with somebody you trust as well. So we're not talking about over-talking, oversharing, just making sure that you find somebody that you can instill your trust in, build a rapport with, just to make sometimes either something better or maybe less worse, and not much more than that in some respects. And the solutions word came up because I tend to find we just live in a problem society by and large.
True.
And people are very, very happy talking about their problems, but sometimes a bit more reluctant to maybe look at the solutions and address those as well. So when I started talking about solutions in full really this April, but I started the year before, I think one of the things that curtailed my drive with the business was spending too much time with my grandchildren.
Yes.
Taking them to school, picking them up, doing all the nice, fun things and bits and pieces like that. But I realised that I've got an ability, and I guess I developed a skill and some knowledge and wisdom along the way just to support people when they're at their worst, really.
We were talking before. Remind me if I'm right or if I'm wrong. What's to do with the fire service?
Yeah, so a long time ago, I left school, I guess bright but lazy. School didn't suit me. And I left school with the only qualifications that I didn't need to revise, which was maths and English language. And I didn't know what to do. So I ended up joining the Royal Air Force.
Oh, wow.
So I was 17, joined the Royal Air Force, spent my 21st birthday on the Falkland Islands. Did 6 years and great moral values and standards, and I guess it kind of really shaped me as being a kind of a black and white person, but looking at the grey rather than living in the grey, I suppose. And want to work more with people, I suppose, than with processes or systems, is what the Royal Air Force gave me. So that's when I went into working with adults with learning disabilities, did a bit of volunteering on the side, ended up doing my social work training, was married with a couple of young sons, and just realised having a piece of paper, a qualification, guarantees your income a little bit more than without. And I think coinciding with that as well, I grew up, great parents, happy childhood, myself and my younger sister. My younger sister at 6 developed a brain tumour and had a reoccurrence 17 years later and died aged 23. Oh, wow. So I think a huge driver for me through all my social work career and my coaching career really is being able to live with my grief and live around it and alongside it sometimes as well. And I know for me, my personal experiences that I've had, and Joanne, my sister, is one of quite a few in the family that's helped me to do the job that I do.
It's kind of given you that empathy, I suppose, as well as then and the tools for you to then to be able to share with other people.
I'd like to think so. And I think, not wanting to sound too, I guess, blunt in a sense, is the role that I do is a role. So from an emotional burden point of view, from a compassion fatigue point of view, I've spent now and have spent an awful lot of time with people in very difficult and troubling circumstances. But my well-being is paramount alongside that too. And I've learned along the way the only way I can look after the people I support is to look after myself.
That self-care route about the oxygen mask scenario on a plane.
Yeah.
Always put the oxygen mask on yourself first because you can't help nobody else otherwise.
Yeah, and you can't pour from an empty cup.
No.
I think I put a post out last week on trying to pour a pint into an egg cup. So I like a lot of theory and evidence base behind my work, but I'm not a simple person by nature, I suppose.
So you describe your work as combining compassionate guidance with practical tools now. How do you balance empathy and structure in your coaching or counselling sessions?
It tends to vary quite a lot because I think I've become an experienced practitioner, I think, just because of the amount of hours I've spent with people. And quite often I like to use a blank canvas rather than a script. Because I think if I turn up with a script, I'm already not listening, or there's a barrier to listening. So I think what I have to be is responsive in the moment. And the people that I'm even currently coaching and have done previously, every story is different. Yeah, so the circumstances that you arrive at are very different too. So I could be working with somebody experiencing grief that comes and presents it as grief. But then, of course, as we know, grief is multifaceted and there's always a backdrop, a context, a story. And what I tend to find quite often is I'm trying to support people to shift maybe from a fixed to a growth mindset as well. Just to see and be curious and explore. I'd rather seeing trying and failing as failure, just trying to see it as curiosity and learning instead.
Your foundational philosophies then, or beliefs really, I suppose, that actually underpin that approach to grief, loss and healing?
Yeah, resilience. There's so many different words that we kind of stumble over. It's a lot of circumstance, I think, isn't it? And I think learning to live with, I think, is quite an interesting concept as well. I like this principle of the only thing you get by looking back is a sore neck.
There's going to be a few of those, I'm guessing, on this episode.
Yeah, definitely. And my part-time job, I work with a counsellor, and she often says we discuss the difference between counselling and coaching, and her kind of simple explanation I like, and she says, if you think of counselling as dealing with the trauma, coaching is dealing with the now and the what's next.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's a very simplistic principle, but it makes a lot of sense. So, and I think there's quite a bit of overlap quite often between coaching and counselling, but I do like the fact that, I guess maybe from an Eastern philosophy, that we've got the resources within us. Yeah. The medical model works for some people, but sometimes a chosen few people. And medication, medical services, counselling, it's there for certain circumstances for some people, but it's not a panacea for everything.
One size does not fit all then.
Without a shadow of a doubt. Within us, there's an awful lot of resilience. The people that I'm seeing, the people that I'm coaching have been through an incredible amount and are still here. So the fact they're still here, they're still prepared to be in this current now moment, I guess. And hopefully they're very determined to see what that next moment is, and they've got that potential within them. So part of me is helping people to recognise maybe the tools in their toolbox they lost sight of.
Counselling is all about is reflecting on an issue.
Yeah.
And then the coaching is kind of giving you that toolkit to get past that issue, to help you deal with that issue on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I think the coaching I describe as sometimes a glance back as opposed to a hard stay. So you hear somebody's story, you get a concept, an idea, an understanding of where they're coming from and maybe why they are where they are. But then there's some quite simple techniques sometimes with regards to what do we need to start doing, what do we need to stop doing, what do we need to do more of, what do we need to do less of, just to be able to make that next moment more meaningful or less troubling.
You work with one-to-one and with groups. Now, how do the methods differ across different settings? What kind of challenges are there for a group or advantages in each format?
Yeah, so I think from a one-to-one point of view, and I guess particularly I'm thinking of men at the moment, because it's quite interesting. Since COVID, I was still working predominantly doing bereavement work during COVID for a local hospice. The shift in men wanting, asking and accessing support, I've found from my own personal experience quite fundamental really, and very positive that men are reaching out more than ever. So I think it's a contextual thing. I think there's this myth that men don't talk.
No. True.
And I think equally alongside that, if you can get a man into a room on a one-to-one basis, that's a hurdle that's overcome for that individual straight away. Men in groups, it's another context again. But I think I'm not only a coach of, but I'm a member of a local mental health group within Blaenau Gwent called You Never Alone as well. And I think what they are doing is changing society's perceptions of what men traditionally with this fixed mindset have looked like and acted like and not supported each other. So that kind of movement I see around me every week, because with this local group, a water dipping twice a week, there's a talking group, there's a breakfast, there's a walk. There's this fundamental shift from having no conversation between men to sharing conversations.
You said there that they say men don't talk. Well,
Yeah.
we know that's not true. Men do talk.
Absolutely.
But the question is, who's actually listening? Men will talk in a group, whether that's a rugby club, whether that's football, whether that's any kind of, down the pub on a Friday night. They'll have a chat. But I think it is that weird stigma about talk about my mental health. Oh, my mental health's good.
Exactly.
And you'll have conversations with people and you realise, oh, actually, you are having a conversation about mental health. You're talking about how you're feeling. There's nothing wrong with that either.
It's the levels, Patrick, I think, isn't
Absolutely,
it?
yeah.
And I think that's what I'm hoping that we are seeing a change in, and that's quite stimulating, really.
When somebody's stuck or they're a bit resistant or struggling to move forward, what kind of strategies or mindset shifts do you use to help them break through?
Yes, again, that tends to be very eclectic based on the person. And I think as a coach, I seldom have the answer. I think my skill, my art is in eliciting something from the individual themselves, really. So I think for many people, I think the answer lies within, is how we get there, I guess, is the challenge. And it's back to tools in the toolbox. I like to use something kind of practical sometimes. So I got a wellbeing wheel, for example, that I use with some coaching clients, because I think, call myself a wellbeing coach because I couldn't think of a better word to put before the word coach, because I didn't like life coach. It sounded too American. Positivity coach, it sounded a bit cheesy.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to do with this well-being kind of word was break it down, I suppose. So this well-being concept, it sounds kind of enormous. And I often think that if well-being's like a wall, what constitutes the factors that impact on your well-being are the bricks in the wall.
Yeah.
And that can be many bricks. So I tend to use a well-being wall or well-being wheel that covers lots of different areas, whether it's emotional, physical, environmental, spiritual, financial, but then break those down again. So if somebody's saying, I'm stuck, I think I need to find out, and I like to use the word because, it just takes it down to a different level. So I think what we need to do is understand maybe why that person is stuck. And I think the other interesting concept as well is that an internal driver? or is it an external driver? So is it coming from a fixed mindset, because this is what I've always been told, or is it coming from people around us, the opinion givers, the people that like to give us advice, even though we don't particularly want it? Fillers and drainers, I call them, Patrick.
Yeah, the radiator and the drain. Radiators are people who emit energy. Drains are the ones that you really want to avoid.
Absolutely.
And we all know them as well.
Yes.
Everybody knows a radiator, everybody knows a drain at the same time. So,
I guess the difficulty is if they're family members or colleagues.
well, that's...
It's how you mitigate against them as opposed to avoid them, I suppose.
Because when you're talking there about the wellbeing wall, you're talking about the bricks of the different things, financial, work, family.
Yeah.
But also you're talking about what's actually holding that wall together.
Absolutely.
So that could be different for people in whatever way.
Hugely. And I think that maybe you're touching on values there.
Yeah.
And again, I do a lot of values-based work with people. And I think a simple way of thinking about values is what matters most. And you hone in on what matters most, maybe the drive, the impetus, the potential for change becomes a little bit clearer then, because if that value's from within, again, as opposed to trying to appease those around us, then maybe the potential for change is far greater.
What specific tools, exercises or practices that you use frequently? And if people are listening, how can they begin by trying one or two of them now?
So I think breath work is very common these days. And I think for lots of people with lots of issues, I think breath work just provides a fantastic pause in the day. And I think for me, one of the best, so the best book I've probably read this year is a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. Because I think back to the wall, if you think of the wall as success, I think the bricks or the blocks in the wall are those very, very small steps that we take to achieve or improve our well-being. So I know that today, for anybody, take one small step. That's all you need to do to start with, is one small step today and every day. And wherever that step is, that small step to improving your well-being is a step towards improvement. So I think the breath work is very handy. And again, there's hundreds of different techniques out there. I go to sleep every single night doing an inhale of 4 and an exhale of 8. I do 6 cycles and I'm sleeping within 30 seconds usually. Wow. There's a Dr. Weiss that recommends a 4-7-8 technique, but I found when I was doing the 7, as in the hold, it made me more alert. And every morning when I wake, I do the 4-8 6 cycles again, followed by 3 gratitude statements. So before my head leaves the pillow, and what I tend to find again is there's a lot of research around positivity mantras and statements at night, but then it made me started thinking about the things I was grateful for of an evening. And what I found is, before my head leaves the pillow in the morning, I do my breath work, then my 3 statements. My day is already started leaning towards the light. Before I even get out of bed, all these small habits and steps that I've started to put my routines into the day are always giving me an advantage.
Yeah.
So give it a go.
Working with grief and emotional pain can take a toll on you as a person. Now, how do you maintain your well-being, avoiding burnout and staying grounded in this work too? So
professionally, I source the support of people I respect and value. So I've got lots of colleagues around me in the line of work that I'm in. So I'll always make sure that if there's a particular issue, I'll talk about it myself. I'll reach out. I think as a well-being coach, and particularly during my 50s, because it's become quite an existential time for me, because I'm enjoying life. I'm living life as well as I can, and I want to enjoy it for as long as I can and as well as I can. And because of my experiences of death, it's made me far, far clearer about what it is I want in life as well. So I got my funeral plans in place. I've had these conversations with my family. I even spoke to my wife yesterday because I think I want to donate my body to medical science as well. And I think as a well-being coach, I'd be a hypocrite if I didn't practice what I preached as well. So my environment, for example, is very, very important. The silence, the stillness that I get at home amid the chaos of family life is very, very important. I think the best company you can keep is your own company. So if you're comfortable with yourself, which I am and I've learned to be, then that's a good kind of asset, a resource to have as well. I find, and it's not for everybody, movement, physical exercise is fundamentally important. So usually Monday to Friday, the first thing I do is spend it in the gym. And then on a Saturday morning at the moment, with a couple of guys from the gym, we've got a 6 a.m. club. So we get up in a van on a Saturday morning.
That's early. Okay.
and on we go. I'm learning all the time, Patrick. I'm learning, I'm failing, I'm learning other things. I'm just very, very curious about kind of growing myself all the time. And I realise the work that I do as well, it's a role, it's a job. And when the impact of the conversations that I have start impacting on me, I'm less effective for the person.
It does go back to the oxygen mask again.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
It's one of them things. You're talking then about grief and arranging your arrangements.
Yeah.
For death. Now, this is one thing not many people will talk about, but you talk about this in some sessions, don't you?
I do. So I offer a dying to know session. So I'd be more than happy to have a conversation with anybody about pulling me along to have a conversation about why it's important to get your house in order. Sometimes it's a bit of a myth that people think if you're talking about dying, it kind of happens a bit quicker. But I find that my experience personally and professionally, if you get your house in order, you live your life then to the max as a result of. So, for example, if you've been given some bad news about your health, if you've got yourself or a family member with a life-limiting illness, it's a very difficult time then to get your house in order. So I've done all my funeral planning. I've got my songs ready.
Oh, okay.
I've got my...
Can I ask what song?
Yeah, you certainly can. So and again, because for me, my service, whatever that service is going to look like now, is all about identity.
Yeah.
So my first song is Men of Harlech.
Nice, very good.
Because I'm a Cardiff City supporter.
That's okay, good.
Back to identity, myself, my son, my younger son, and my dad. We followed Cardiff for many, many years. My son was a ball boy, because I knew the groundsman at one point as well. So again, that kind of Welshman will not yield as we walk in either to the creme or now if I have my body donated when my ashes are received potentially.
Yeah.
So whatever moment, what type of service is held. Then I'm thinking of O Mio Babino Caro, because I do like a bit of classical music. My musical tastes are very mood-driven. I like a bit of cooking, and you're guaranteed to clear the kitchen if I'm playing classical music. And Song for the Summer by the Stereophonics is my walking out song.
Oh, wow.
Because if you ever listen to the words are very poignant. They're my favourite live band. I've seen them maybe 15, 20 times over the
You've seen them a few more times than me then. Absolutely. Wow, I've seen them a few times, but not that many. Wow. Okay.
Well, my eldest son is coming up to 35, and it was his first ever gig, I think when he was 7 or 8, and it was their first ever tour, the Word Gets Around tour, Newport Leisure Centre with Feeder supporting them.
Yeah.
And my granddaughter, who's now 13, it was her first gig a couple of years ago in Swansea, and I got a chance to take it again to the Principality in the summer. So I think it's about having conversations. My family know where my ashes are going to be scattered. My granddaughter, my only granddaughter at the moment, know that she's having my wife's jewellery when she dies. So her eyes light up every time my wife buys some new jewellery. But I think it opens up so many other conversations, because I think for me as a grandpa of a teenager now and a couple of youngsters, I just want to make sure that it's a world I don't recognise to a large degree, Patrick, because it's their world and not mine. So I just want to make sure that I'm open and receptive to ensure that we have conversations about anything, which then goes into the coaching work as well. So one of the things I'm kind of doing locally is helping people to talk about suicide prevention. And again, just having those difficult conversations about if you see somebody that you're a little bit concerned about and feel a little bit low, just having the gumption, having the appetite really just to have that difficult conversation a bit less uncomfortably.
Not to be scared of saying to somebody, have you got a plan?
Yeah.
That kind of...
100%. Because there's many myths with suicide, and one of them is if we talk about suicide, it's more likely to happen.
Yeah, that's right.
And the fact is, it's it's the polar opposite. So I think I'm very privileged to do what I'm doing, and I know that my coaching philosophy spills over into my personal life as well. So it's a privileged position to be in, really, to have these conversations with people.
It's all about going back a little bit about how you maintain your well-being. It's all about self-care at the end of the day.
Of course,
And what
it
you
is.
do outside of talking with people talking through their problems, is how you step away and
Yeah.
putting your boundaries up and making sure that you're feeling okay with everything.
100%.
And, for some people, mentioned about 6 a.m. gym visits. Trust me, it's not for me. But then for me and for other people, it could be about reading a book, just sitting outside and being present in that moment, isn't it?
100%. I think one of the advantages of being a coach is it's almost like you don't have to have the answers. All you need to do is help people find their own answers.
You're like a mirror in that respect.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Because I'm not an advice giver.
No.
I'm not an advice giver. There's a particular coach, Michael Bungay-Stanier, he's called, and he wrote a book called The Coaching Habit, and he's got some wonderful tips. And one of his TED talks about the advice monsters that are around us, those people that love to give you advice, particularly on the topic that you don't need the advice on.
It's all a case. Sometimes people will tell you what they think, and then you don't do it. They'll be like, they get very offended.
Exactly.
Strange that.
Yes.
I think maybe that could be a Welsh thing, though.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Possibly, yeah.
Possibly.
I think it could be a
cultural thing.
A cultural
maybe.
thing of the valleys
Yeah.
in general, yeah. Where everybody knows everybody else. So it's a case of, well, you don't do that, and then you get very offended.
Yeah. And of course, sometimes we always think we know best.
Yeah, well, of course we do.
And we like to do, don't we? Because again, it's good for us.
How do you know when, and your clients will know when real change or healing has occurred? That's quite a statement to make, I suppose. But what indicators or signs do you look out for?
I think for me, it's got to come from the individual. Because I know that every coaching session I have, we start the next one with a reflection of what was useful from the previous session and what have you learned about yourself during the week, really. So it's all about asking the person, about recognising, again, and sometimes those small steps, Patrick. It's about 2% better, 3% less worse. What does less worse look like? What does better look like? What have you stopped doing? What have you started doing? What changes do you see in yourself? What changes do you recognise in yourself? What changes do others see in you? Because that's quite an interesting one as well. The number of people recently in the follow-up sessions just talking about the differences that other people see in them. And of course, some of those differences are not going to suit those people that see them, because maybe, for example, people started saying no.
Again, that could be another conversation. But no, you're right. I think with any kind of therapy, for example, you see somebody at the start of their journey, then as it goes through, you don't see them on a session by session basis, but by the very end, you could tell that somebody they've taken control back a little bit, especially by saying yes all the time, maybe. It's
lovely. Just one person of the people I've seen recently just talked about his own kind of health anxieties, and he came and he was afraid he was gonna die too young, really. The difference now, the compliment he gives with regard to the coaching is great, but fundamentally the work that he's put in, he's worked in on himself.
Yeah.
So he's lost an incredible amount of weight. He's doing more exercise than he's ever done. He's far more content. His family and his friends are seeing and noticing the difference in him. And it's lovely to get the feedback that he attributes it to coaching, but the hard work starts and ends with him, really, because he's still got a choice. It's a fork in the road, isn't it? And sometimes there's a lovely quote. There's a guy called Jim Quick, the brain coach. He's got a book, and don't be upset by the results you don't get from the work you don't put in.
Yeah.
And we live in a quick fix world, don't we?
What you said about your job as a coach, as a wellbeing coach, you're not telling people what to do. They need to reflect on what you've talked about in the session.
Yeah.
Then it's not really the work within that session, it's the work in between the session.
Absolutely. And it's a shared space, it's a safe space. It's hopefully somebody in some way, Patrick, that you build trust and rapport in somebody, and they can have a conversation with a person that's got no opinion. They're not going to feel burdened by what they're being told. They don't make a judgment. They're not going to give you advice. And of course, all those people around us quite often, particularly the ones that love us really, want to fix us and make things better or less worse. And sometimes that advice creates more pressure, unfortunately, as well. So what I'm able to cultivate here, and because the setting as well is so peaceful, and we use a fair bit of mindfulness and use the garden as well, is just to be able to put the brakes on the moment, just press stop, use a bit of silence, just have a little bit of time to contemplate where we are, where this now moment is, and then decide what needs to happen next.
I think that's the trouble as humans. We often don't like silence. Obviously, doing this now, silence is not good for this, because obviously there's nothing there for people to listen to. But
Yes.
in a conversation, in a normal conversation, there'll be gaps like this. But normally we don't like it as humans. I think it sets us on edge a little bit sometimes.
I think you're right, and I think people are too busy waiting to say something to fill the silence. And I know that even during my coaching training, where I had to complete 100 hours, and I did it with colleagues, and even subsequently, what I often used to do is when somebody comes into a room, particularly with staff, as opposed to maybe some more of the private coaching clients, is when they come into the room, you have a minute, and you set the clock for 1 minute where nothing gets said. And I've learned to be very comfortable in silence, which I guess family and friends would probably laugh about, because I do tend to talk a lot.
Can't believe that.
Bit of a hypocrite, but that silence is so powerful, and I think I love this concept of listening isn't the same as waiting to speak.
Yeah, that's very true. So finally, where do you see Talkabout Solutions heading in the next 5 to 10 years? And are any new things you want to achieve? Any new things you want to do? Do you want to take over the world? I'm basically asking, if you had a magic lamp and I could grant you 3 wishes, what would those wishes be?
I'm just very content with where things are at the moment, Patrick. And I think maybe 18 months ago I was maybe looking to commit full time to the coaching business. But I'm very, very fortunate that I work as part of a team part-time, incredibly valued, I feel, with an incredibly valuable service as well. And I do often wonder if going full steam into working alone tends to isolate to a degree as well. So in some respects, I got the best of both worlds. I work at a fantastic team that's providing, I think, a fantastic service, an invaluable service. I think the Talkabout Solutions, I always wanted to do some local work. I wanted to keep it affordable for local people to afford it. I know the rates that I charge are probably half of potentially what I could charge, but I never wanted to go down that route. I love the fact that I've been getting involved in a local men's mental health group, and that's another thing I'd like to see kind of developing over time potentially. I got some workplace sessions lined up as well, some bits and pieces, just encouraging kind of open conversations. And again, I think I'd like to see a little bit more movement in that direction, working with local providers in the area, just get conversations going. I'd like to get into businesses and get people talking about and having these difficult conversations. I think for lots of businesses and organisations these days, there's this online employee assistance program, and people like people. They like to get in a room with people, and I think for lots of businesses it ticks a box saying that, yes, we've got this service. But I think there's nothing like getting in a room and having a conversation with people. So I'm enjoying the pace that this is going already. So, and I know we've had some quite exciting news just this week about some collaborative work across the wider Grant as well with Torvine Talks and some other organisations. I'm very, very excited to be working with some new people as well.
Yeah, it's an exciting time. So I think it is a case of you would love to do more, but then at the same time you kind of, I'm okay actually. This is a nice balance of
100%.
As long, I think for myself personally, it's all about, as long as the bills are paid, everything else is on top. We've never said we want to be millionaires, because let's face it, we won't.
No.
But
no.
If you can kind of change somebody's life in whatever way that is,
yeah,
that's, I think, maybe a bit cheesy, a bit cliched, but I think that's what it's all about, really.
I think it is. I was coaching a young chap in his early 20s quite recently, and we talked about kind of, and a lot of coaches about goals and and meeting goals. And I think as a personal well-being coach, I'm far more interested about steps and habits, routines and rituals, because the outcome looks after itself then, Patrick, to a large degree. And he talked about, I don't know, owning a pretty fancy car by the age of 30. And during the session, by the end of it, instead of that, we really honed into what mattered most to him, and we focused on values instead. So in a sense, the car became unimportant because potentially he was chasing the car for the wrong reasons.
It's all about values.
To sate the wrong people. 100%. 100%.
Absolutely. Jonathan, it's been a complete pleasure.
Thank you.
And thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much for the invitation, Patrick.
Where every guest is a new volume and every life is a story worth sharing. This is the Life Library from Talkabout Solutions CIC. To be on the podcast, give us a call 07516 016 345 or via socials or website at talkabouttalksic.org.uk.
This is a podcast from Talkabout Solutions CIC.